I really didn't start studying sitar until way later than I would have wanted to, you know.
How did you meet this Ustad?
It's really pretty simple.
Yeah.
I'm living in New York City,
Uh-huh.
and I'm like, well, maybe I want to learn sitar. This is a good story. I'll give you the very condensed version. I was like, well, I'll just Google sitar
Yeah.
teachers in New York,
Uh-huh.
and he came up in that list,
Oh, so
and
they're in
I
New
saw
York.
photos of him with with Ravi Shankar, and his
Yeah.
bio sounded good, and I'm like, okay, that sounds like the real deal.
Yeah.
And then I just sat on that for like a year, maybe
Mm.
longer. Just sort of like that thought was like, well, that's not going to happen.
Right.
Then I went and I studied the Japanese shakuhachi flute
Wow.
for a year because I thought that was something I was wanting to do. Because somehow I thought that would be easier than playing the sitar because the sitar has all those strings, right?
Right. Flute
And
is ridiculous though, man.
yeah. And so then I was looking at guitar amps on Craigslist,
Mm-hmm.
and someone had a sitar posted, and I was sort of joking to my wife, like, hey, someone's selling a sitar.
Yeah.
And she said, yeah, I'd rather you bought a sitar than another guitar amp. Sort of sarcastically, right? So
Be careful what you wish for.
yeah, well, so
I
I
can
emailed that
understand
guy
that.
that was selling the sitar, and we sort of
Yeah.
just, but like that, nothing happened with that.
Yep.
But then I redid some Google searching, and I came across Ustadji again. I
Mm.
was like, oh yeah, this guy, and I just sent him an email,
Yeah.
and um, and then he wrote me back, and he said that I should call him if I wanted to take lessons. And I was like, ooh, that's like, am I doing this?
Yeah.
And so then I talked to my wife about it, and she was like, because we were living in a small one bedroom New York City apartment,
Yeah.
and she was like, we gotta have I already had not this many guitars, but I had a few. And she was like, we got to put a sitar in here. Like, no,
Yeah.
can you just like I don't think so. And so
Right.
so
Anything else? Yeah.
so then I mean, she's super supportive and tolerant of me.
Yeah,
Um,
but there's a line.
so then I I contacted him and I said, I don't know if this is like maybe I don't want this if this is a whim. Like, do I have to buy a sitar or like how does this work? And he said, no, you just come to my apartment, you play my sitar, and then you go home, and then you come next week and you play my sitar. And I said, so I don't need to buy a sitar. He said, no. And I said, great. And so then I saw him
Ah.
later that week, and the first lesson was just to sit and basically interview me. Was I serious? What was my
Yeah.
background? Was I worthy, I guess?
Yeah.
And and that went well. And he said, do you want to take a lesson? And I said, sure. And he said, when? And I said, can we do it right now? And he said, yep. So I got down on the floor,
Hmm.
and he handed me that sitar there.
Oh, wow.
And I still remember putting the Mizrab on. I remember Da and Ra and playing my first sorghum up and down.
Wow.
And I remember leaving that lesson and still, had my Mizrab, which I still have as like a
Mm.
keepsake. And I remember my finger being so numb that I was like, well, that's going to go away, right? And it took 2 weeks for that numbness to go away.
Whoa.
And I was doing that for a little while, and it was about going to be Valentine's Day. I started actually in January, so it's just like Valentine's Day is coming up now, right?
Wow.
And he was like, "So you seem to be pretty like you want to do this. You should maybe rent a sitar from me?" I said, "Yeah, okay." And I talked to my wife, and she was like, So her Valentine's Day gift to me was, "Let's go uptown and go rent this sitar."
Oh,
So I went and
that's really
I
nice.
called him, and he got it all packed up for me, and I sat and he tuned it up, and I brought it home, and it was immediately out of tune when I got home. And my
Yo,
first real lesson was got to figure out how to get back in
how
tune.
to tune that thing.
But that was sort of like had my original sort of step into it, and I rented that sitar for 2 years
Wow.
until he was leaving to go to Pakistan, and he was like, "All right, you should, if you've been doing this for a while, like you seem pretty serious. I think maybe you should
Yeah.
buy a sitar."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Yeah, and you're going to Pakistan for a while, so maybe this should happen." So then I
Yeah.
bought this sitar, the one
Oh, great.
that was his one of his main playing sitars at the time. He had
Wow.
several, but it was one of his, and that was like a sort of big moment. And then he said, "Well, the one that you're renting, though, I can't take that yet. So just hold on to that until I need it." So then I had two sitars in our
Oh,
small one
cool.
bedroom apartment,
Oh my
and
God.
that was sort of a moment where I got to sort of chuckle to myself and tease my wife and say, "See, you wanted me to not have any sitars in the house, and now we
And
only have
look what
two."
happened. Now there's two. Oh my
So,
gosh. Oh, that's a
but
great story.
so that's that sort of like journey, and now it's been tough because he went to he's been in Switzerland for over a year now because his wife got a job there, and he thought he was going to be sort of New York City and Switzerland,
Yeah, but it's not
but
that
with
easy.
COVID, he's just been there.
Yeah,
So
he's just been there. Oh,
So
that
it's
must
taken
be
lessons online,
hard.
and that's the
Yeah.
time difference has been hard for me to coordinate. And I don't know. It's all on me. I'm being a bad student, you know.
Well, yeah, Europe is a challenging one when you're
Yeah.
in the US and you're working.
Yeah.